Greetings to everyone and welcome to today's internal awareness session. Presentation aims to raise awareness about HAZCOM, manual handling, safe handling, and storage of chemicals and highlight its importance to Al Masood employees. The contents of the presentation will include the following: awareness objectives and awareness deliverables, chemical hazards, classification of chemical hazards, hazards symbols, safety data sheet, SDS, personal protective equipment, PPE, handling and storage of flammable chemicals, general safety tips, handling of chemical emergencies. The objective of this awareness session is to describe the health, safety, and environment (HSE) risks associated with chemical management, and explain the mechanisms on how to control and mitigate those risks in your workplace. The deliverables of this awareness session is to ensure the following: gain knowledge of proper manual handling techniques to prevent injuries. Understand safe methods for handling and storing chemicals in the workplace. Learn how chemical hazards are classified, including flammable, toxic, corrosive, and reactive substances. Recognize and interpret hazard symbols commonly used on labels and safety signage. Identify potential workplace hazards and implement effective control measures. Understand the correct selection and use of personal protective equipment, PPE, for chemical safety. Where do chemical hazards occur in the field? In a producing oil and gas field there are many chemicals in use, and they can be very dangerous. Wells, drilling completion fluid, stimulation fluid, HCl and HF. Pipeline, process facility, demulsifier, defoamer, scalene inhibitor, corrosion inhibitor, aromatic solvents, biocides, O2 and H2S scavengers. Mechanical, engine oil and lubricant. Laboratory, solvents, reagents, crude and gas samples. Warehouse, chemicals, paint, solvents. Chemical risks are also present in less obvious locations: utility water plant, chlorine, oxygen scavenger, biocide, offices, kitchens, bleach. Different types of incidents arise from chemical hazards. The examples below emphasize the diverse and severe outcomes of chemical-related incidents, which include burns, fire, explosion, corrosion, environmental damage. Chemical hazards can lead to incidents such as burns, example an HF burn due to wrong gloves, a biocide burn due to wrong shoes. Next we can see chemical waste imposing significant environmental damage, including the pollution from chemical waste and its impact on aquatic life, example fish killed by chemical waste disposal. Fires and explosions, example the fire Chemiepak in the Netherlands 2010.
Let's talk about who does what when it comes to chemical safety at AME. We all have a part to play. First, employees. That means you. Your responsibilities are straightforward. Follow labels, SDS requirements, and PPE requirements. And if you see anything wrong, missing labels, leaks, spills, or any unsafe conditions, report them immediately. Don't wait. Don't assume someone else will do it. You see it, you report it. Next, supervisors. You are responsible for ensuring that SDS availability is maintained, labels are in place, task briefings are completed, and workers are trained before any chemical is used. No one should touch a chemical until they know what it is and how to handle it safely. Storekeepers and stores in charge have a critical role. You must maintain the chemical inventory, ensure proper storage segregation, keep the latest SDS copies available, and manage controlled issue and receipt of chemicals. If you don't know what's in the store, no one does. Project engineers and managers, you ensure that only approved chemicals are used on your site. You must complete COSHH and risk assessments, and make sure controls are implemented before work starts. And finally, the HSE department reviews and approves chemicals, supports training, conducts inspections and audits, and monitors overall compliance. We're here to support you, but everyone has a role.
Types of chemical hazards. Hazards due to properties. They are exhibited by certain chemicals because of their chemical properties, reactivity, flammability, etc. Category: combustible, flammable, solid, liquid and gases, compressed gases, etc. Chemical hazards. organic peroxide, oxidizers, pyrophoric materials, unstable materials, and water-reactive materials. Health hazards occurs when a chemical produces an acute, happens quickly, high brief exposure, or chronic, not immediate but effects are long and continuous, health effect on exposed employees. Hazardous substances. Solvents defat the skin, skin diseases. Acids burn body tissues. Gases affect the respiratory system, lung damage. Routes of chemical exposure. Inhalation, breathing, example powders, fumes. Absorption, skin or mucous membranes. Ingestion, entry through mouth. Injection, through skin by foreign body. Acute exposure, short-term eye irritation, nausea, dizziness, skin rash, burns, headache. Chronic exposure, long-term illness. Classification of hazardous chemicals. This slide displays a reference guide for recognizing and understanding the primary risks posed by hazardous chemicals. These symbols visually communicate the dangers associated with substances, and are used to identify various types of chemical hazards, including corrosive, indicating damage to living tissue or materials, dangerous for the environment, harmful to ecosystems, explosive, potential for rapid expansion with release of energy, very toxic, poisonous and harmful upon exposure, oxidizing, contributes to the combustion of other materials, harmful/irritant, causing less severe but still concerning health effects, and highly or extremely flammable, easily ignites and burns rapidly. Globally harmonized system classes illustrates the universally recognized pictograms and their corresponding hazard classifications under the Globally Harmonized System, GHS, for the classification and labeling of chemicals. Each pictogram represents a specific type of hazard, such as health hazard, for carcinogens, mutagens, respiratory sensitizers, etc., flame, for flammables, pyrophoric, self-heating, etc., ! For irritants, skin sensitizers, acute toxicity, etc., gas cylinder, for gases under pressure, corrosion, for skin corrosion burns, eye damage, and corrosive to metals, exploding bomb, for explosives, self-reactive, and organic peroxides, flame over circle, for oxidizers. Environment, for aquatic toxicity, non-mandatory, and skull and crossbones, for acute toxicity, fatal or toxic. This standardized system ensures consistent communication of chemical hazards worldwide, aiding in safer handling and transport. Recognizing chemical hazards. The following is a health hazards which is used to describe carcinogen, mutagenicity, reproductive toxicity, respiratory sensitizer, target organ toxicity, aspiration toxicity, germ cell mutagens. The following hazard symbols have a flame symbol. The flame describes flammables, pyrophorics, self-heating, emits flammable gas, self-reactive, organic peroxides. The following hazard symbols have a exclamation symbol. Exclamation mark describes irritant, skin and eye, skin sensitizer, acute toxicity, harmful, narcotic effects, respiratory tract irritant, hazardous to ozone layer, non-mandatory. The following hazard symbol is depicted as a gas cylinder within a red-bordered diamond. It is associated with gases under pressure. This symbol serves as a clear and immediate visual cue to indicate the presence of high-pressure gases, which pose risks such as explosion, rapid release of gas, or asphyxiation. The following hazard symbol is associated with a corrosive substance as one that will destroy or irreversibly damage another surface or substance with which it comes into contact. Corrosive substances can cause severe burns, permanent tissue damage, or blindness upon contact. Respiratory irritation, and internal injuries if inhaled or ingested. These substances can damage equipment, cause chemical reactions with other materials, and lead to environmental harm if spilled. Proper handling, storage, and use of personal protective equipment, PPE, are essential to minimize these risks. Oxidizing agent is a substance that is not necessarily combustible, but may, generally by yielding oxygen, cause or contribute to the combustion of other material. Example: hydrogen peroxide, potassium dichromate. It can cause spontaneous combustion in contact with other substances such as organic substances, fuels, or reducing agents, even without an external ignition source. These chemicals can also cause burns on contact and release toxic gases when mixed improperly. The skull and crossbones symbol indicates highly toxic substances that can cause serious health effects or death if inhaled, swallowed, or absorbed through the skin. Any chemical or mixture having capability to harm the environment, living beings and to human health by any mode of exposure, if inhaled, swallowed, or absorbed through the skin, is termed as toxic chemical. Example: hydrazine. Radiation hazards. Ionizing radiation can damage living tissue in the human body. It strips away electrons from atoms, breaks some chemical bonds. Spontaneous decay of radioactive materials produces radiation. Radiation may be ionizing and non-ionizing. An infectious substance hazard refers to materials that contain pathogens such as bacteria, viruses, or other microorganisms that can cause disease in humans or animals. Exposure can occur through contact, inhalation, or accidental injection. In case of damage or leakage, immediately notify public health authority. Environmental hazard, dangerous to environment. Chemicals enter air as emissions and water as effluent. Industrial and motor vehicle emissions of nitrogen and sulfur oxides cause acid rain, which poisons fish and other aquatic organisms in rivers and lakes and affects the ability of soil to support plants. Carbon dioxide causes the greenhouse effect and climate change. Explosive is a reactive substance that contains a great amount of potential energy that can produce an explosion if released suddenly, usually accompanied by the production of light, heat, sound, and pressure. A chemical explosive may consist of either a chemically pure compound, such as nitroglycerin, or a mixture of a fuel and an oxidizer, such as black powder or grain dust in air.
Manual handling of chemical containers is something we do all the time, but it can be dangerous if not done correctly. Let me walk you through the key points. First, assess the load first. Don't just grab it. Look at the weight, the size, the shape, where you need to grip it, the route you need to take, and where you're taking it. All of these factors matter. Second, use the correct technique. Stable footing, bend your knees, keep your back straight, keep the load close to your body, lift with your legs, and don't twist while you're carrying the load. Your back will thank you. Third, if the load is heavy, awkward, or unstable, use a team lift or mechanical aids. Don't try to be a hero. Fourth, use approved aids, drum trolleys, pallet jacks, forklifts, and other approved handling equipment where required. Fifth, never lift damaged, leaking, or unlabeled containers manually. If it's damaged, it could break. If it's leaking, you could be exposed. If it's unlabeled, you don't know what you're dealing with. And finally, if in doubt, stop and ask for assistance. There's no shame in asking for help. It's better to ask than to get hurt.
This image shows the NFPA chart, also known as the fire diamond, which follows the NFPA 704 standard for hazard identification. It uses a color-coded, diamond-shaped symbol to quickly communicate the dangers of a chemical during emergencies. The blue section indicates health hazards, 0 indicating normal, and 4 indicating deadly. The red section shows flammability based on flash points, 0 indicating it will not burn, and 4 indicating below 73 degrees Fahrenheit, and the yellow section reflects instability, 0 indicating stable, and 4 indicating may detonate. The white section highlights special hazards, including symbols like acid, alk, COR, ox, the crossed W, no water, or radiation. This system helps emergency responders assess and react to chemical risks quickly. The image features a chemical compatibility chart, specifically titled Dangerous Goods and Combustible Liquids Storage Compatibility Chart. It is a matrix used to ensure the safe storage of hazardous chemical classes by indicating whether substances can be stored together, where green indicates it is okay to store, need to be kept separate. Orange indicates segregate, must be stored apart with strict isolation. Red indicates isolate, or require further assessment. White indicates check notes. The rows and columns represent various chemical classes such as flammable gases, toxic gases, oxidizing liquids, combustible liquids, and organic peroxides, each marked with appropriate hazard symbols. This chart is essential to prevent dangerous chemical reactions, fires, or explosions caused by improper storage.
Reading a chemical label correctly is a skill you need to master. Let me break down what a compliant chemical label should contain. First, the product identifier. This is the chemical name. Always check this before you use the product to make sure you have the right one. Second, GHS pictograms and signal word. The pictograms are the hazard symbols we've been discussing, and the signal word is either danger for more severe hazards or warning for less severe hazards. Third, hazard statements and precautionary statements. These tell you what the specific risks are and what you need to do to protect yourself. For example, highly flammable liquid and vapor, or protective gloves and eyewear. Read these carefully. Fourth, supplier or manufacturer details. This includes contact information for the company that made the chemical. Fifth, never use chemicals from unlabeled or defaced containers. If you can't read the label, you don't know what you're dealing with. And sixth, secondary containers must also be labeled with the required information. If you transfer a chemical to a smaller container, that container needs to have a proper label too.
Recognizing chemical hazards. Safety Data Sheet, SDS. SDS is the most important source of information of your chemical. Each SDS is structured in the exact same way. It lists the properties of the product and explains the risks and control. SDS gives details for PPE requirements, exposure and explosive levels, treatment information, emergency response details. Information on an SDS includes the following: product and company identification, composition information on ingredients, hazards identification including emergency overview, first aid measures, firefighting measures, accidental release measures, handling and storage, exposure controls and personal protection, physical and chemical properties, stability and reactivity data, toxicological information, ecological information disposal considerations, SDS transport information, regulatory information, section for other information. The following is an SDS example on toluene, showcasing a safety data sheet for the chemical toluene, specifically a reagent grade. The SDS provides critical information about the substance, including its identification, manufacturer, supplier details, emergency contact, hazard identification, flammable liquid, skin irritant, reproductive toxicity, specific target organ toxicity, aspiration hazard, with corresponding GHS pictograms, and emergency measures. The right side of the SDS provides details on first aid measures for various exposures, eye contact, skin contact, inhalation, ingestion, and firefighting measures, including flammability properties and suitable extinguishing media. This document is a vital resource for ensuring the safe handling, storage, and emergency response related to hazardous chemicals. Prevention to reduce chemical hazard provides a clear and concise guide to essential safety measures when dealing with hazardous chemicals. It uses a series of pictograms alongside explanations to outline key preventative actions. The first is prohibiting open flames, sparks, or ignition sources for flammable or combustible chemicals. If the hazardous chemical is flammable or combustible, no open flame, sparks or other ignition sources. Next is emphasizing the necessity of respiratory protection, like dust masks or full face piece respirators. Hand protection, example rubber and chemical-resistant gloves, with a reminder to always wash hands after use. Body protection required, overalls, aprons, chemical suits. Stressing the importance of eye protection, safety glasses, goggles, full face shield. And finally, highlighting the crucial aspect of environmental protection through proper storage, careful disposal, and spill prevention and cleanup. Personal protective equipment specifically focuses on eye and face protection. These three common types of personal protective equipment designed to safeguard the eyes and face from potential hazards. Safety glasses, which offer basic impact protection, chemical-resistant splash goggles, designed to provide a more secure seal around the eyes to prevent chemical splashes, and a face shield, which offers comprehensive protection for the entire face from splashes, impacts, and other hazards. Body and foot protection is necessary when working with chemicals. These are three key categories of protective gear: a chemical-resistant apron, which provides front body protection against splashes; chemical-resistant boots, designed to protect the feet and lower legs from corrosive or hazardous liquids; and full-body chemical PPE, which depicts a comprehensive ensemble including a respirator, chemical protective clothing, full suit, chemical-resistant gloves, and chemical-resistant boots. The range of protective equipment is important to wear to safeguard the entire body from chemical exposure, from partial coverage to full encapsulation.
Now let's talk about an absolutely critical step in chemical safety: approval before use. The rule is simple and non-negotiable. No new chemical shall be brought to site without AME and HSE review and approval. You cannot just bring a chemical onto site without going through the proper approval process. The latest SDS must be submitted and reviewed before procurement, delivery, or use. This means the SDS needs to be reviewed well before the chemical arrives, not on the day it shows up. When we review a chemical, we look at the hazard classification, the intended use, the storage requirements, the PPE needs, what to do in case of a spill, and how to dispose of it properly. We also need to confirm compatibility with existing chemicals and workplace conditions. Some chemicals react dangerously when they come into contact with other chemicals. We need to know that before they arrive. Once the chemical is approved, we update the chemical inventory and communicate all controls before first use. Every person who will work with that chemical needs to know about it and understand the controls. And this applies to contractors too. Contractors must also obtain approval before bringing chemicals to site. No exceptions. This approval process is designed to protect everyone. Don't bypass it. Before any work starts with hazardous substances, you must complete a COSHH assessment. COSH stands for Control of Substances Hazardous to Health. This assessment is a systematic process where you identify all the hazardous substances involved in the work, evaluate the risks they pose, and determine what controls need to be in place to protect people. The assessment considers things like what the substance is, how it can enter the body, what the health effects are, what exposure limits apply, what PPE is needed, what emergency procedures are required, and how the waste will be disposed of. No work with hazardous substances should begin without a COSHH assessment being completed and the controls being implemented. This is a non-negotiable requirement.
How to store chemicals. SDS sheets must be available for all chemicals. All chemicals must be properly labeled and inventoried. Keep incompatible chemicals separated. Flammables stored in flammable storage cabinet.
Proper storage, segregation, and containment of chemicals is absolutely critical for safety. Let me walk you through the key requirements. First, store chemicals only in designated, labeled storage areas. Don't just put chemicals anywhere. They belong in specific areas that are clearly marked. Second, segregate incompatible chemicals. This is one of the most important rules. Keep acids away from alkalis. Keep oxidizers away from flammables. The segregation quick reference shows you. OK means they're compatible and can be stored together. The exclamation mark means they should be separated. Keep them apart. And the X means never store them together under any circumstances. Third, keep minimum required quantities at the workplace. Don't store more than you need. If you don't need it today, don't keep it at the work site. Store it in the designated chemical store instead. Fourth, use secondary containment or bunding for liquid chemicals where required. This means having a tray or a bund underneath containers so that if there's a leak, the chemical is contained and doesn't spread. Fifth, ensure good ventilation, closed containers, and protection from heat and ignition sources. Chemicals should be stored in well-ventilated areas. Containers should always be kept closed when not in use, and flammable materials must be kept away from anything that could ignite them. Sixth, maintain good housekeeping. Keep access to emergency equipment clear at all times. If there's an emergency, you need to be able to reach eye wash stations, safety showers, fire extinguishers, and spill kits quickly. And finally, use the segregation quick reference guide. OK means compatible. They can be stored together. The exclamation mark means separate, keep them apart. And the X means never store together. These chemicals must be kept completely separate. Now let's talk about hazardous waste and empty container disposal. This is a critical part of chemical safety that often gets overlooked. First, let's understand what counts as hazardous waste. This includes chemicals themselves that are no longer usable, contaminated rags and absorbents, empty chemical containers, contaminated PP and oil, paint, or solvent residues. All of these must be handled as hazardous waste. These materials must be kept segregated, properly labeled, and sealed. You cannot just throw them in the regular trash. On the other hand, non-hazardous waste includes general trash, paper, uncontaminated packaging, and food waste. These can go through the standard municipal or site waste stream. Now here are the key rules for disposal. First, dispose of chemicals, contaminated materials, and empty containers per the SDS, manufacturer instructions, and the AME waste procedure. The SDS tells you exactly how to dispose of that specific chemical. Follow it. Second, never pour chemicals into drains or onto the ground unless specifically authorized. This is absolutely forbidden. Drains lead to waterways, and ground contamination affects soil and groundwater. Both can cause serious environmental damage. Third, label waste containers clearly and keep them closed. If it's not labeled, no one knows what's in it. If it's not closed, it could spill or evaporate. Fourth, store waste in designated areas pending approved disposal. Don't just leave waste anywhere. It belongs in specific areas set aside for waste storage. And fifth, maintain disposal records and logs as required. This is not optional. We need to track what was disposed of, how it was disposed of, and when. Remember, how you dispose of chemicals is just as important as how you handle them. Dispose responsibly. Now let's talk about the storage and handling of flammable chemicals. These are some of the most dangerous substances we work with, so we need to be extra careful. Here are the key rules you must follow. First, keep containers closed when not in use. Flammable chemicals give off vapors, and those vapors can ignite. Keeping the container closed prevents vapors from escaping and building up in the work area. Second, keep away from ignition sources. This means no smoking, no open flames, no sparks, no hot work, and no electrical equipment that could create a spark. Flammable vapors can ignite from something as small as a static spark. Third, avoid contact with incompatible materials. Some chemicals react violently with others. Check the SDS to know what materials are incompatible with the flammable chemical you're using. Fourth, only transfer to approved containers. Don't use random containers. Use containers specifically designed for flammable liquids. They're made to prevent vapor release and static buildup. Fifth, bond all receiving containers. This means connecting the container you're pouring from and the container you're pouring into with a bonding wire. This prevents static electricity from building up and creating a spark. Sixth, clean up spills and dispose of waste properly. Even small spills of flammable liquids are dangerous. Clean them up immediately and dispose of the waste according to the SDS and AME procedures. Seventh, ensure that storage areas meet regulatory requirements. Flammable storage areas must comply with all relevant regulations. This includes things like fire-rated walls, proper ventilation, and the right type of storage cabinets. Eighth, ground all drums properly. Grounding prevents static buildup. When you transfer flammable liquids, both the drum and the receiving container need to be grounded. Ninth, store quantities in approved storage rooms and cabinets. Flammable storage cabinets are specially designed to contain a fire and keep it from spreading. They're not optional, they're required. And 10th, store only in small quantities. Don't keep more flammable material at the worksite than you actually need. Store the rest in the designated flammable storage area. Remember, flammable chemicals don't give second chances. Now let's talk about the Integrated Hazardous Materials Management System, or IHMMS. IHMMS is a computerized electronic and integrated system used as a tool for the management and control of hazardous substances that are imported into and produced within the Emirate of Abu Dhabi. The system is an electronic model for the integrated and core management of hazardous materials. This includes chemicals, radioactive materials, pesticides, and other hazardous substances. It provides the necessary information in an integrated manner for the involved decision-makers on the types, locations, and quantities of hazardous materials being used across the Emirate. The system has been launched according to Decree No. 20G September 2008, which was issued by the Executive Committee of the Executive Council of the Emirate of Abu Dhabi. This means it's not optional, it's a legal requirement. The IHMMS system includes an electronic database for the management of hazardous materials, as well as many other important functions. Let me walk you through them. First, it manages the unified list of banned and restricted materials in the United Arab Emirates through the concerned authorities. Second, it monitors banned and restricted materials entering the Abu Dhabi Emirate. Third, it processes electronic import permits for hazardous materials. Fourth, it provides access to safety data sheets for chemical materials. Fifth, it tracks materials and facilities that deal with hazardous materials. Sixth, it provides a database of hazardous materials incidents. Seventh, it provides a database of violations related to hazardous materials. And eighth, it provides instant reports and statistics related to hazardous materials. The system also ensures a link between hazardous materials concerned authorities and determines their roles in order to avoid duplication. It supports the integration of their work and cooperation in the management of hazardous materials. The system is an important source of information about hazardous materials for all ministries, governmental and non-governmental organizations, existing facilities, and scientific and educational institutions. At the same time, the system enhances the competencies, capacities, and mechanisms of relevant institutions in the management of hazardous materials, as well as the exchange of information and internal documentation. The system has the advantage of being flexible and has the ability to accommodate enhancement and inclusion of other ministries and governmental institutions concerned in the future. So in short, IHMMS is the backbone of hazardous materials management in Abu Dhabi. It helps us track, control, and manage hazardous materials from import to disposal. Now let's talk about exposure, incident, and near-miss reporting. This is how we learn from what goes wrong and prevent it from happening again. First, let's cover what you need to report. You must report spills, splashes, and leaks, any release of a chemical, no matter how small. You must report inhalation events, if someone breathes in chemical vapors, fumes, or dust. You must report skin or eye contact with chemicals, anytime a chemical touches your skin or gets in your eyes. You must report missing or damaged labels. If you can't read the label, it's a hazard. You must report unsafe storage conditions. If chemicals are stored incorrectly, it needs to be fixed. You must report defects in controls, PPE, ventilation, eye wash stations, safety showers, or spill kits. If the equipment that's supposed to protect you isn't working properly, we need to know. And you must report near misses, even if there was no injury. A near miss today is an accident waiting to happen tomorrow. Report it. Now, what are the first actions you should take? Step 1. Seek first aid or medical attention per the SDS and the site emergency procedure. Don't wait. If you've been exposed, get help immediately. Step 2. Notify your supervisor and HSE without delay. The sooner we know, the sooner we can respond and prevent further exposure. Step 3. Preserve the scene where safe. Do not clean up before the investigation. We need to see what happened so we can understand why it happened. Only clean up if there's an immediate safety risk. Step 4. Support the investigation with facts and honest observations. Be truthful and provide as much detail as you can. This isn't about blame, it's about learning. Step 5. Follow through on corrective actions assigned to you. If you're given a task to fix something, complete it. That's how we make things safer for everyone. Remember, reporting is not about getting anyone in trouble. It's about preventing the next incident. Every report makes us safer. Now let's go through some general safety tips for working with chemicals. These are simple but essential rules that can save your life. First, never eat, drink, or smoke while using hazardous chemicals. Chemicals can contaminate your food, drinks, or cigarettes, and you could ingest them without knowing it. Always keep food and drink out of chemical work areas. Second, use personal protective equipment as required. We covered PPE earlier: goggles, gloves, chemical-resistant suits, boots. Wear whatever the SDS and your risk assessment say you need. Don't cut corners. Third, make sure all chemical containers are properly labeled. If it's not labeled, you don't know what it is. If you find an unlabeled container, don't use it. Report it to your supervisor. Fourth, always wash up after using chemicals. Wash your hands thoroughly with soap and water, even if you think you didn't get any chemical on you. You never know what residue might be there. Fifth, never smell or taste a chemical to identify it. This is incredibly dangerous. You wouldn't believe how many people have been injured or killed by doing this. If you need to identify a chemical, read the label or the SDS. Sixth, know all emergency procedures and equipment. Know where the eye wash stations, safety showers, spill kits, fire extinguishers, and first aid kits are. Know the evacuation routes and assembly points. And know the emergency phone numbers. Seventh, always read labels and SDSs prior to use. Don't assume you know what's in the container. Read the label and the SDS before you open it. Know the hazards and the controls. Eighth, store all hazardous chemicals properly. We covered this in detail. Keep incompatible chemicals separated, use secondary containment, keep flammables in approved cabinets, and maintain good housekeeping. And ninth, always use hazardous chemicals as intended. Don't use a chemical for something it wasn't designed for. Don't mix chemicals unless you know it's safe. Don't use more than the required amount. These are simple rules, but they are critical. Follow them every time.
Handling chemical emergencies. In case of an emergency, it is crucial to know the appropriate phone numbers to call, how to control and contain a spill, and the correct procedure for safely shutting down equipment. Be familiar with evacuation routes, designated assembly areas, and the use of required protective and cleanup equipment. Emergency response includes proper cleanup and disposal methods, firefighting procedures, first aid, and the operation of other emergency equipment to ensure safety and minimize hazards.
Now let's talk about spill kits and first response actions. When a chemical spill happens, you need to act quickly and correctly. Here's what you need to do. First, know spill kit locations, contents, and who is authorized to respond. Don't wait until there's a spill to figure this out. Know where the spill kits are, what's inside them, and who on your team is trained to use them. When a spill occurs, your immediate actions are: stop work, stop what you're doing, and focus on the spill. Raise the alarm. Alert others in the area so they know there's a hazard. Isolate the area. Keep unprotected persons away from the spill. Don't let anyone walk through it or get close to it. Now, before you start cleaning up, wear the correct PPE. Check the SDS to see what PPE is required for that specific chemical. Don't start cleanup without proper protection. Follow SDS instructions. The SDS will tell you how to handle spills of that chemical. Follow it. Then you need to control the source, but only if it's safe to do so. If you can stop the leak safely, do it. If it's too dangerous, wait for the response team. Contain the spill. Use absorbents, booms, or other materials to keep the spill from spreading. Prevent spread to drains and the environment. This is critical. Chemical spills must not enter drains or contaminate soil and groundwater. Dispose of waste correctly. All contaminated materials must be disposed of as hazardous waste according to the SDS and AME procedures. And finally, report all spills, leaks, and exposures immediately. Even if you think it's a small spill, report it. The HSE team needs to know so we can document it and learn from it. Now let's talk about compliance verification and worker readiness. How does AME make sure everyone is following the rules and staying safe? We use 4 main methods. First, inspections. We inspect workplaces, storage areas, PPE, spill kits, eye wash stations, and safety showers on a regular basis. We're checking to make sure everything is in good condition and ready to use. Second, audits. We audit our systems, procedures, and records against AME standards. This is a deeper look at how we're doing and where we need to improve. Third, interviews and document checks. We talk to workers to make sure they understand the procedures. We check SDS availability, chemical inventory, training records, and waste disposal logs. This helps us verify that the system is actually working. Fourth, corrective actions. When we find issues, we track them, verify the fixes, and close them with evidence. Nothing gets forgotten or left unfinished. Now, here's the really important part. Every worker must know 5 things. First, where the SDS is kept for the chemicals in use. You should be able to find the SDS for any chemical you're working with in seconds. Second, emergency contacts and reporting numbers. Know who to call and what number to dial in an emergency. Third, the location of the nearest spill kit. If a spill happens, you need to know where the cleanup materials are. Fourth, the location of eye wash and safety shower stations. If you get chemicals in your eyes or on your skin, you have seconds to act. Know where to go. And fifth, evacuation routes and assembly points. If there's a major emergency, you need to know how to get out and where to gather. These are not optional. This is basic safety knowledge that everyone must have.
Let's continue working together to make a positive impact and drive excellence across our organization. Following this awareness session, please take a moment to complete the training evaluation questionnaire. Kindly submit your responses to HSE department for our records. Thank you.